We're getting a clearer picture of what kind of leader Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump's choice for Secretary of Defense, would be from his own mother. The New York Times obtained a copy of an email she sent to her son during his acrimonious divorce from Samantha Deering, his second wife, after he had an affair and impregnated the executive producer of his co-worker Jesse Waters' show on Fox. He's currently married to this woman. His mother writes, quote, "I have tried to keep quiet about your character and behavior, but after listening to the way you made Samantha feel today, I cannot stay silent. You are an abuser of women. That is the ugly truth, and I have no respect for any man that belittles, lies, cheats, sleeps around, and uses women for his own power and ego. You are that man and have been for years. And as your mother, it pains me and embarrasses me to say that, but it is the sad, sad truth." She goes on to accuse him of abusing many women and implores him to get help. In a phone interview with The Times, Mrs. Hegseth said that she had sent her son an immediate follow-up email at the time in 2018, apologizing for what she had written. She said she had fired off the original email in anger with emotion at a time when he and his wife were going through a very difficult divorce. She also said she would send this second email to The Times, but ultimately she did not. The revealed email, though, comes at the same time that The New Yorker uncovered new details about what kind of manager Hegseth has been and could be at DOD. According to Jane Mayer, who wrote the piece, a trail of documents corroborated by the accounts of former colleagues indicates that Hegseth was forced to step down by both of the two nonprofit advocacy groups that he ran, Veterans for Freedom and Concerned Veterans for America, in the face of serious allegations of financial mismanagement, sexual impropriety, and personal misconduct. Hegseth, who celebrated the war in Iraq as a triumph of neoconservatism and helped promote the troop surge in Afghanistan, was flagged for public intoxication on the job, which led to multiple incidents. The detailed 7-page report, which was compiled by multiple former CVA employees and sent to the organization's senior management in February 2015, states that at one point, Hegseth had to be restrained while drunk from joining dancers on the stage of a Louisiana strip club where he had brought his team. According to the same report, under his leadership, the Koch brothers-backed Concerned Veterans for America had become a hostile workplace that ignored serious accusations of impropriety, including an allegation made by a female employee that another staffer on Hegseth's team attempted to sexually assault her at a Louisiana strip club. Hegseth's attorney declined to comment to NBC News. The Trump transition team has not responded to a request for comment. NBC News and MSNBC have not independently reviewed that report. In a separate letter, another employee complained that Hegseth was at a bar on an official tour in Ohio, drunkenly chanting, "Kill all Muslims, kill all Muslims." 3 sources told The New Yorker that Hegseth was forced to resign from CVA under pressure, in part because of concerns about his management and abuse of alcohol on the job. His lawyer told The New Yorker that these allegations were, quote, outlandish claims laundered through The New Yorker by a petty and jealous, disgruntled former associate, unquote. Olivia Troy is still with me, and joining us is retired Army Major General Paul Eaton, senior advisor to Vote Vets. Major General Eaton, hearing all that you just heard me read from 2 different publications, the New York Times quoting this man's mom, Pete Hegseth's mother, and also the New Yorker, the Jane Mayer piece, would you promote someone like that to any position in the military under your command?
Joy, the short answer is no. When your mother says you're a cad, when the Koch brothers fire you, we are now in the world of you can't make this stuff up. And I'd like to bring up, while we're talking about the senior civilian leader of the Department of Defense, we have something called the Personnel Reliability Program. Not sure if you've heard of it, but shortly, anybody in the nuclear release chain has to be vetted under the work of the Personnel Reliability Program. And they get into far more important things than just security clearances. They get into the psychology of the person, the reliability of the person, and all the behaviors that we're finding out now would be an immediate disqualifier and multiple disqualifiers for the PRP, the Personnel Reliability Program. So Senators Tuberville and men like him might want to revisit their glib commentary that they've put out there.
The interesting thing about it is, Major General Eaton, I mean, isn't infidelity a cause for a finding of misconduct? Just that alone? Would drunkenness and infidelity be acceptable among the major, the general ranks of the military?
Joy, as you know, any organization looks to the senior leader of the organization to establish the good order and discipline of the organization. And infidelity is a chargeable offense, will cause untold anguish to any perpetrator. And I mean, it's created generals going to colonel because the rank last honorably served is the rank they will retire at. So he has committed multiple offenses that would not pass muster to the chain of command.
Olivia, Peter Hegseth himself has described himself as a Christian who adheres to Christian family values. In a short-lived bid for the Republican nomination for a Minnesota seat to the U.S. Senate in 2012, he credited his parents for instilling those values, saying, "I didn't learn conservatism out of a book." He presents himself supposedly as a committed Christian who wants to bring Christianity back into our schools and back into the military and make the military a more honorable organization. But your thoughts on what his mom says he is? Or at least what she said he was in 2018.
Yeah, well, certainly I think this is another example of the hypocrisy running deep here with this individual, because, I would believe it's mom. And if she's the person that raised them with these conservative values, that's probably why she was writing this email, because she was deeply upset at the time at what she was seeing. And look, mamas know their sons, right? I mean, I'm very close to my mom. My mom knows me very, very well. They know who you are and what you're not. And so I would say, that something like that should give people great pause. This is coming from someone that's in his own family. The other thing that I'll say to follow up on what General Eaton said is, I think about what he would be like in the role of Secretary of Defense, not only in terms of leading the department, leading the people that serve under it, but what he looks like when he's serving in that role to our foreign partners, when he's overseas in these countries, and what the heck is he going to be doing as a leader in that role on the ground? Because to me, he's the perfect counterintelligence threat. He's the perfect prime target of foreign adversaries who are familiar with the pattern of behavior, because they will be digging into this themselves, who are paying close attention to this, and they will exploit it.